Well, good afternoon. My name is Ray Walters, and this is my oral report for Church History 201. And for that report, I want to introduce you to a man by the name of Desiderius Erasmus. Erasmus was a Renaissance man, born in Rotterdam, Holland around 1469, possibly 1466. He was known to claim both dates as his birth date. He died in Basel, Switzerland in 1536. He was a Dutch humanist. He was regarded then and even now, and rightly so, as one of the greatest scholars of his time. But he was born as the second illegitimate son of a priest and of a physician's daughter, which caused much angst in his life. He was not a happy child. He did not enjoy his childhood or his early life at all, and lost both of his parents very young to the plague. His guardians then shipped him and his brother off to a school, and the only thing that he could say about the school was that he remembered the severe discipline which was intended to break or teach humility by breaking a young boy's spirit. When he was given the opportunity to leave school, he joined a monastery as an Augustan canon. He was ordained as a priest in 1492 and accepted a position as the Latin secretary to Henry of Bergen, who was the Bishop of Cambrai at the time. This was his way out of the monastery, but Erasmus soon found that he was not suited for monastery or for life as a courier, and soon found an exit for both of these as well. In 1499, a student of his invited him to England, and this would change his life forever. There he would meet his lifelong friends and Thomas More and John Colet. These men would be instrumental in changing the direction of Erasmus's life. They introduced him to humanism, and that allowed him to begin to move away from the arguments of the scholastics that he had been taught all of his life up to that point. He returned home armed with a Latin copy of Paul's epistles and a conviction that understanding the New Testament truly required a mastery of the Greek language. In 1502, Erasmus was living in what is now Belgium and reading Origen and Paul's letters in the Greek. In 1505, Erasmus returned to England looking for support and monetary funding to continue his studies in the Greek language and humanism. What he got was an opportunity to travel to Italy itself, and so he took that. He arrived in Bologna just in time to see a triumphal entry of the warrior Pope Julius II at the head of his army. Now, this inspired Erasmus to write a book called Julius Excluded from Heaven. It was a satire piece about Julius being denied entry into heaven by the Apostle Peter because of his many, many sins. It was fair to say that Erasmus was troubled by what he saw from the church and from the Christian community as a whole. He thought that the Pope acted more like Caesar than Christ, and that the common people would have Jesus and the gospel on their lips, but there was no evidence of that in their lives. And he believed that education was the key to the reformation of the church. He wanted to see the church change. He wanted to see it to get back to being more Christ-like. And so that he said that pastors should be trained in the philosophy of Jesus or in philosophy of Christ rather than the scholastic methods that were being used at the time. He said, and I quote, "If the gospel were truly preached, the Christian people would be spared many wars." Now, this all led up to his writing of his greatest achievement in what is known as the Greek New Testament. And this may very well have been the very first parallel Bible that we received. What he did was he took the Greek text and he took the Latin text and he laid them side by side along with his own notes. This translation laid the groundwork for what is now known as the Textus Receptus, or the received text. Now, why is that important? Well, it's the foundation for the King James Bible as we know it today. This was the inception of the King James Bible. And this had a profound effect on another upstart at the time by the name of Martin Luther. Luther was convinced that Erasmus was an ally, but that really wasn't the case. The two men would clash many times over the years. Erasmus believed that the church needed to be reformed, but he's not willing to go as far as Luther was in the reformation of the church. He didn't want to see the baby or the Pope thrown out with the bathwater. He believed that the schism that lay between the Protestants or the Lutherans and the church lay more in the laws and ceremonies of the government of the church than it did in the theology of the church. So he believed that the two could be rectified if we were just willing to sit down and discuss the matter with one another. He was a prolific writer, he was a defender of the faith, and he believed in the peace and the humanity of Christ. And for all those reasons, Erasmus was a wonderful, wonderful scholar and teacher of the Bible. God bless you.